Hi, so a bit about my background. I'm a chemical engineer, and after I finished my PhD, I joined Cadbury, and I worked for 10 years in operations management, engineering, building greenfield sites, and just over 3 years ago, I joined SAB Miller, who are one of the world's largest brewers, in a global manufacturing development manager role. And by manufacturing development, we mean operational excellence, world-class manufacturing and global measurement processes to identify saving opportunities. But another part of the role was thinking about the future. So on my first day, before my laptop arrived, my boss gave me a book called The World in 2020, quite a big, thick book. And that was really the start of my journey to starting to think about what all these changes that we're seeing in our personal lives with mobile technology were actually going to do in the world of work. I want to just tell you a little bit about SAB Miller, because some people have heard of it. It comes from South African breweries. It is top 10 FTSE company, 70,000 people worldwide, and our biggest competitor is currently preparing to pay over $100 billion for us. So we are a huge company, over 30 countries, and my work spans those 30 countries. So what I'm looking at is mobile technology not just working in the developed world, but also how it works in the developing world. And one of the trials that I'll be talking about, we did in Uganda. I'm also Colombia, and it adds a different sort of spin when you're talking about how to make this work in many languages. Obviously, digital really helps with automatic machine translation, but also different levels of skill and different levels of automation, because while it might be very cost economic to put in high levels of automation in Italy, where we make Peroni, or the Netherlands, where we make Grolsch, really to put that level of automation into Nigeria, where we make Hero, or into Swaziland, into the mountains, it just doesn't, you don't get the paybacks. So it's always about looking at a practical solution. And this map just shows you where we sell beer, everywhere apart from the Middle East, really. And after the takeover, 1 in 3 lagers bought worldwide will be made by the new company. So really quite a powerful force. We also do soft drinks, so 6% of our volume is with soft drinks. We're a major Coca-Cola bottler, particularly in Africa. So when I started on my journey thinking about the future, we wanted it to add into the business strategy and the real sort of business opportunities where we needed agility. I mean, I guess most people here are beer or drinkers, or certainly have been in pubs and seen the rise of craft beer and the rise in variety. People want to try new beer almost every time they go to the pub. So you get this, what we had even in the confectionery world, this SKU proliferation. So you're looking at shorter run lengths, faster changeovers, a more agile and responsive supply chain, although it's really hard to do that when your product takes 3 weeks to ferment. We're also looking at a need to generate value. So I was trying to explain the concept of peak beer. So countries, as they get more developed, reach a peak per capita consumption of beer. And we're starting to see that in some of the developed world, and when people then branch out into wines and spirits. But in the emerging markets, in Africa and Latin America, we're still converting people from moonshine into lager, and then they're going on their journey into the premium spirits. But in the worlds of peak beer, then we're looking at premiumization, we're looking at vintage beers, we're looking at customization, and we're just looking at growing margin because the volume growth isn't there. And then, as was referred to, sustainable operations are really important to us. We're talking about long-term sustainability. It's our license to operate. We operate in some really water-stressed areas, particularly in India and Africa, and it's really important to us that we make sure we can operate there for the next 10, 20, 30 years by ensuring that there is still lots of water around, not just for us, but also for our consumers. And a lot of the work we do in Africa is making beer with local products like sorghum and cassava and enabling the farmers to make a livelihood, and then they employ more people, and then that's more people who can drink our beer and have an income. So we have this whole lovely virtuous circle, and that's our Prosper program, which is really interesting. And that curve at the bottom there, that fortunately you can't really see the numbers on, but that's our water glide path. The gold bars are our achieved water reductions, and that's where we're heading. And out of these three opportunities for commercial success, we saw 20 trends grouped into technology, people and skills, and ways of working. In technology, I think we're all aware technology convergence, so we kind of became aware what platforms to test and trial and implement, what's happening with industrial wireless, connected devices, the Internet of Things, automation. You can do anything. You can have a brewery where every operator is tracked, you know where they are, you might even know where they are before they get in the brewery. You can map out their whole day, you can see what they're doing, you can see how much time people are paying attention at screens, you can monitor response times. You can do all of this, but what in there actually adds value? And that's the key bit. What is the business case for making the investment to connect all these devices, put in this automation? We've obviously got cheaper and more powerful process control and autonomous vehicles. One of the sites I worked at in a different company, we put in an autonomous vehicle. The operators attacked it frequently, kept getting broken, but then automated warehouses, they're there. You can go and see them on YouTube. We have them in our business. One of the sort of scary things is the rise of the robots and the automation of our jobs, so automated knowledge work. And it's starting. You can use Google Alerts. You can get aggregated knowledge applied together. And one of our projects is Future Brewery, future pack line designs, which I'm not going to talk about here, but briefly, the ambition is to have a brewery that is completely powered by its products. So combining the waste, the biogas, the bioenergy, the energy you can get from the waste grains, and also a bit of solar, can we then, with energy efficiency, make a completely self-sustaining brewery? And we believe we can. And then the pack line of the future. How are we going to respond to all these different pack types people want? They want cans, they want PET, they want bottles, they want fresh tanked beer, they want kegs, and all the different varieties. And how can we do that sensibly? But the bit I want to talk about is what we call the new world of work. You see the rise of the expert. And what we see also is the expert not having to have an expert in every single brewery. A really good example of this is we looked at other industries, and mining do this. So mines are in remote areas of Australia where you might not necessarily be able to persuade your mining expert to go and work. But by using technology, you can put your mining expert somewhere nice like Melbourne where they'd like to live, and then using Skype, cameras, virtual reality, wireless phones, technology, you can immerse them in the wine as if they were there and they had all the data. And you can see something very similar in brewing, where you would have someone centrally maybe looking after 3 or 4, 5 breweries, and when there's a problem, the guy's got a camera on their phone. This is what the beer looks like, this is the fermentation code, these are the parameters. The guy's got access to exactly the same data set, and then they can give the advice and the guidance. And so you're getting people who are quite expert. The East is a source of skills. We see that. I mean, even 10 years ago when I was starting out, my friends who worked for consultancies were faxing across their PowerPoint slides to be hand-drawn PowerPoint, and they come back in PowerPoint from India. Now we see it with statistical analysis during this takeover. The East are doing all the stats, and the numbers come back. So definitely looking at the outsourcing to the East. And this also means middle management are being eroded. And that interrupts a career path because you go up, and then when you get to middle management, it's not necessarily there. If you think about this, and I've been reading a bit about social media now, and what social media does is it lets the leaders in an organization connect directly with the operators and the people, circumventing middle management. And that leaves middle management feeling a little bit less empowered because, your MD can tweet directly to an operator, and therefore the message isn't getting filtered. They haven't got that knowledge, that power. And yet they're the most important people, and we see this frequently in world-class manufacturing. The leadership get world-class manufacturing. They understand why it's important. They've seen other places doing it. They get it. The operators get it because it makes their life easier. they have a more meaningful job, they can feel success, they're probably going to get a reward scheme. But the middle management are the people that are often the blockers, and you need to convince. And so the role of middle management in the future is going to be interesting. It is still there. Will technology let them manage larger areas, and what's going to happen there? And then multiple generations. So we certainly see this in many countries where you can have 3 generations of the same family in the workforce, particularly with elder generations, with age discrimination, finding work that older people can do safely. And then there's desire for work-life balance that we see. These are the sort of trends that we're trying to capture. And then the trends in ways of working. We have virtual teams involved in operations. I think I talked about how that might work. Agility to enable innovation. Digitization of paper processes. I've done a trial on the digitization of standard work, which I'm going to just show you a couple of screenshots of. Training in simulated environments. A couple of weeks ago, I went to the MTC in Coventry, not far from here, and they've got a simulated virtual reality environment. Before you've built your factory, you can go in and you can look around and see how it works, see the access points for maintenance, and they can do it from existing ones as well. And virtual reality, so you can train people. So rather than what we did a long time ago, as we shipped people to another factory that was very similar, you can also train them where they are. And then also this high complex expert knowledge also does require a bit of proximity. You do need to be close to the operation. You do still need to be able to smell it, to hear it, and to feel it. And so there will always be people in breweries. I don't think we'll ever get to a dark brewery. So we have a vision for 2030, and I just want to really focus on the final column about people. With all this extra data and information and automation, I think the future is really not about the operator operating the machine, but the operator maintaining the machine and optimizing the machine. So the idea is that people will spend less time gathering data and more time adding value from the insights that they can get from that data. We're looking at high levels of implant mobility. We've proven we can put wireless all around a packing line with all its metal blockers. And you can see mobile devices from strap to the arm to whether it's in your clothing, if you're doing lone working to check that you're still alive, to just the standard tablet, or rather the industrial tablet. We're seeing a higher level of skills, flatter org design, dynamic scheduling of work, and I'll just come on to that, I think, on the next slide. So on the left, we've got mapped out a day in a life, but it's essentially you come in and your little tablet app, phone, tells you what you're doing. It schedules your work for you. It might tell you to have a break. It might tell you you've done well. It might tell you it's your colleague's birthday. There's all sorts of things that it can do. And in fact, if you think back to now, this can actually happen before you enter work. So your boss could get an email or an automatic notification saying, there's heavy traffic on this road, expect X, Y, and Z to be in late. And you could have your phone send that, or you could start there. And that's already possible. And so this is already possible. The question is, how much do we want to control? How much, if you take away the autonomy, do you lose the initiative, and how much do you trust people? And it's quite an interesting thing to work through, because a lot of this technology, it might save 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, adds up to an hour a week, 2 hours a week. You can't make a capital case on 2 hours a week of saving unless that 2 hours a week is overtime, unless that 2 hours a week is going to be put to some other value-adding opportunity. But if you can add up 2 hours a week of lots of different people, then maybe you can rebalance the workload. So this is the trial I did on digitization of standard work. This is our Colombian brewery. We used software as a service, and basically you would just click on any of these categories. So my Spanish isn't great, but I think calidad is the boilers, and you've got evaporation, and then you would get videos. So you don't just have pictures and text, but you also get a short video. And the next example is our Australian breweries in Yatala. And one of these, they've got a fantastic video for their CIP of their wastewater treatment plant. And you would never, something they do once every, or because of the operator rotation shift, it's done once every 6 months. But by looking at this video, you know that actually when you turn this valve, you don't just turn it once and twice. You see the guy going like this for a good 10 seconds, and it gives you the confidence that actually you're doing the right thing, and it shows you where all these differently located valves were. So you can imagine page after page of photograph with arrow pointing here, when actually in a video, you can cut it all down a lot quicker. This is something in Latin America. It doesn't have to have pictures and videos. And this is our a questionnaire we did before and after this trial of digitization of standard work. And the very last one is how easy is it to update the standard work? And the red bar is before we digitized it onto this this app with a tablet, and then afterwards they said it was excellent. It was very easy to update. And it adds a social element in, because operators can comment on the standard work and say, actually, I do it like this. And the ultimate aim of this project, we've had to put a stop to it due to the takeover, but the ultimate aim would be to have all breweries doing standard work with keywords. So if you were operating a filler, you could talk to the operator in another country doing the same task, or you could see their standard work and you could have best practice, not just shared across countries or across regions, but in our case, across all 102 breweries, which really would generate some savings, because if you can just save a small amount of water or energy or improve quality a small amount, then you really are generating a strong business case for something like this. And then very quickly, because I know it is lunch almost, these are the drivers of digital transformation that I took from a book about the engaged leader. This is about the leadership using social media, but actually it works just as well in a brewery. So it is about the data and being able to get the insights from that data rather than spending all your time collecting it. Mobility is important. Rather than having to go back to the office to do the work, you can do it on the shop floor. And I think the social connectivity bit is really going to drive the engagement. So being able to talk, we see it in our personal lives with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and so on, but also at work we have Yammer, but to drive that onto the shop floor so that they can start to talk to each other and know when significant events are happening and engage. I think that will really drive a significant change. And so this is one of my ideas of the future, is rather than going to one company that does one great big software solution where everything works, what I'm seeing from going to places like this and other conferences is actually there's a whole load of companies that have great ideas for particular niches. And what you really want is to be able to get into the code so you can get them all to talk to each other. So you'll pick something with visual performance. It'll be ClickVote, View, Chartio, Tableau, something like that. You'll have something for your social media, for your team. You'll pick something for work instructions, something for your maintenance, and they'll all talk to each other. And I could talk more about this, but perhaps afterwards. And really, using all these different ideas, you really can actually influence the strategic priorities. So these are not the strategic priorities of manufacturing or operations, these are the groups. So deliver superior top-line growth. Well, clearly we can help them produce high-quality beer repeatably, reliably. The trial in Australia actually increased the percentage of batches that were right first time by several percent. Of course, it helps you to build a globally integrated organization and to reduce costs, because you can suddenly talk to each other. One of the problems we have is language, and that's not just in Europe. Most of Latin America is Spanish, and we have Portuguese in Mozambique. America is India, but English rather. But in Europe, you've got Dutch and Spanish and Portuguese and Romanian and Polish and Hungarian, and just for them to translate to each other, it really helps. And then by putting this all together and sharing our best practices and enabling the engagement, we can shape our global mix and turn over faster. And so that, in a snapshot, is what we're looking at in SAB Miller. We're running a series of trials to test these, because we find that where the value comes from isn't always where you'd expect. And the only way to find out how you can make a strong business case is to say, this is strategically important. We need a bit of money. We'll go and do some trials in some different breweries around the world, different cultures, prove it works. And then when you pack it all together, you'll get some really significant improvements in the engagement and in the operations. So that's me. I have run out of business cards, but if you put me in LinkedIn right now, that'll be just fine. Thank you.